So we're about to get into the meat of what the conservatives really use as a means of condemnation. Two of the most talked about scriptures. We're not skipping one of them. We'll touch on it, but it kind of just piggybacks off of these two. These are the main two within the Holiness Code. And you hear people talk about the Holiness Code that are used a lot. The Holiness Code actually spans Leviticus 17 through 26. That's where the bulk of the 600 and some rules that God has set before his people, that's where they're found. Leviticus 17 through 26. And it's very interesting to read Leviticus. In fact, we'll go ahead and we'll touch on a couple of the scriptures in just a little while. It includes two peculiar verses that have been a basis for condemning homosexuals. So I want to know from you all first, before we go into it, what have you all heard concerning these particular scriptures? And let's go ahead and read them. Leviticus 18:22 and Leviticus 20:13. Who has Leviticus 18:22? 18:22.
Who is it assigned to?
Actually, that one really wasn't assigned. Well, it was assigned to CC, but chapter 18 was 18:22.
You want me to read it?
It doesn't matter. Anybody.
Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. That is detestable.
And who has 20:13?
There's that. If a man sleeps with a man as a woman, they both have committed an abomination. They must be put to death. Their blood is on their own hands.
All right. So what have you all heard concerning, or have you heard anything concerning those particular scriptures?
Yeah, that from these scriptures, gay people are abominations.
Abomination. What else? Anything? Pretty much it talks about things being detestable. It talks about lying with a man as one lies with a woman. It's an abomination. A lot of times people say, well, there you go, and they point it right on out. There it is right there. It says it right there in Leviticus that you shouldn't be lying with a man as you lie with a woman. It's talking about gay people, that's homosexuality, and therefore that's my basis for scripture. And you know, from that point forward, there's no talking to people sometimes because they're stuck in Leviticus and on Leviticus 18:22 and Leviticus 20:13. And honestly, it's about breaking down the scripture and figuring out some things. It's like all scripture. Because, and I'm not saying that a lot of conservatives will say, well, just forget Leviticus altogether. It would be a short Bible study if I were to say that. Let's forget Leviticus altogether because Leviticus is part of the Holiness Code. We don't even live by the Holiness Code anymore. And you know what? That's a pretty strong statement. You know, we don't live by the Holiness Code. What did Jesus die for if we still have to live by the law? However, even in that, it's like, okay, well, God did say something at some point in time. So what was he saying? Why did he say it? And who was he talking to? All scripture has to be broken down like that. Scripture is given to us in certain points in time for a reason. And we cannot all the time. Now, sometimes we can carry it over and make it applicable to our lives today. But sometimes we cannot use that same 4,000-year-old scripture and apply it to today. Not because the scripture has gone bad or has expired, or because what we do today is different than what happened way back when 4,000 years ago. We've changed. And the scripture doesn't necessarily pertain to what we do. So, an example of that would be you know, even the way we hold church services. You know, the Bible talks about what you're supposed to do when you enter into the tabernacle. This will be considered the tabernacle, will be considered the house of God. It talks about some very specific things that you have to do before you even enter into the tabernacle. And it talks about the washing and the passing through, the sacrifices that you have to make to even get there. All of those are in that same holiness code, that same chapter, and we don't do any of them. Why? Because it doesn't pertain to us anymore. It is not feasible anymore for us to slaughter a lamb. It is not feasible, nor is it cute for us to sit here and have blood running off of the altar. That is not what we do now. That's what they did then. Things have changed. We have changed. So the scripture has not changed, but we have. Scripture cannot be taken out of context. You have to consider the who, what, when, where, and why of the word. The first question to answer is who. So who was the law written for? Does anyone know who the law was written for?
Israelites.
Israelites. It's written for the people of God that were taken out of Egypt. They were taken from their captivity, and they were brought into the desert. And once in the desert, Moses went up to the mountain and got the rules and regulations, got the law for them, because God had pulled them out to be a holy people for him. Those are God's people, and he certainly wrote a written law for his people. We have to understand that this is some 4,000 years ago. These are Israelites. These are Jews. Today, most Jews don't even follow the Holiness Code. It's before Palestine. After Palestine, after the temple even was torn down, a lot of the things stopped. And especially for Christians, once Christ came and died, he became our sacrifice. And he became a lot of these things. He was the fulfillment of the law. So we no longer follow the Holiness Code. Next, we have to examine the entire law to understand it. The what of the scripture. What other issues were addressed? Some of the more interesting ones are listed below. So the next is what? What did the law say? What is the law? Because the law isn't just man should not lie with a man. That's an abomination. That's not just the law. There's a whole lot more to this law thing. There's some 600 different rules, what you should not do. Some you have to do this, keep this day holy. There's a lot of different things in that law. And so what were some of them? So we can read Leviticus chapter 11, verse 7, please.
And the swine, though it divides the hoof, having cloven hooves, yet it does not chew the cud, is unclean to you.
All right. So Leviticus, the Holiness Code tells us we are not to eat pork. No pork. No hot dogs that are made out of pork. No baby back ribs. No whatever, pork chops, pork loin. No pork stew. Whatever you put pork, your ham hocks in those greens. All of that. The Holiness Code said no pork. That's unclean for you. All right. What's Leviticus 11:10 say?
And all in the seas or in the rivers that do not have fins and scales, all that move in the water, or any living thing which is in the water, they are an abomination to you.
So they're in the boat with homosexuality. They're an abomination. So we talk about shellfish, crab, lobster, shrimp, red lobster. Red lobster. That's in the boat with homosexuality. That's an abomination. Soft shell crab. I mean, you name it. Clam. Anything that does not have scales that comes from the water is an abomination. This is the law now. Leviticus 17:10.
Any Israelite or alien living among them who eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats blood. I will cut him off from his people.
Rare steak. Anything rare. Anything that even got a little bit of blood still left in it.
I'm dead.
Cutting them off. No longer allowed. Leviticus 18:19. And go ahead and read 18, 19, 20, and 23.
nor shall